Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from, or if you're watching the recording. We're so glad to have you here. My name is Michelle Mather. I'm the founder of the Green Marketing Academy. I'm based in Seattle, Washington. And welcome to our LinkedIn Live Spotlight series, where we are showcasing change makers and leaders who are helping to inspire climate activism and more sustainable marketing practices. So joining us today, we have Nivi Achanta, founder of Soapbox Project. Welcome. I'm so excited that we were able to connect a couple of months ago at a local event in Seattle put on by the climate designers and Indigo Slate. So shout out to them. And I'll just hand it over to you to do a more thorough introduction to kick us off.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, Michelle. I am glad that we are now going to be friends. That's always exciting out of an event. So I'm Nivi Achanta. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the founder of Soapbox Project, and my whole mission in life is to make climate and social justice easier and more fun for people because it can feel really overwhelming, right? Like when so many things are going wrong in the world. Most of us, if not all of us, I would say, are seeking connection and purpose, and we are having a hard time figuring out how to get those things. And especially when it comes to social and environmental justice issues, it sounds to many people, they feel like you have to be an activist or have some specific expertise or a title. And I entered this work as just a person being like, what can I do in this crisis? Or, 20 different overlapping crises. And I just realized there wasn't that much resources for ordinary people trying to do their best. So that's kind of what Soapbox Project is. We are a community that helps people transform their overwhelm and climate anxiety into meaningful action with others.
Awesome. Yeah, and I really enjoyed the presentation that you gave at the event that I attended. It's often, I know you'll talk more about this, but when you see the word joy and climate in the same sentence, sometimes it can be like, how did those two really fit in the same sentence, more or less? So, yeah, I would love for us to learn more about your story. And you touched on a little bit of why you do this work, but what was your path? How did you get into this?
I would say most people in my generation, in probably most of the United States, even though loud voices try to convince us otherwise, most people in my generation have been born into this world with the knowledge that the planet is on fire. So for me, it wasn't so much, this aha moment of, oh no, the world is burning and global warming and I have to do something. It was, I would say, it was this kind of thing that was running in the background my whole life. But I think I didn't realize two things. First, the scale of the problem and how close it was time-wise. When we would talk about it in school and stuff, it seemed like this 2050, 2080, whatever future problem type of thing, which is how we ended up in this situation in the first place. And the other thing I didn't realize is that everyone has a role to play. So I would say the learnings came pretty slowly, but how I finally really got into this work is in 2018. If anybody watching this is from California, you know this. California had its most devastating wildfires in 2018, most destructive wildfires, the Camp Fire. And my partner's family is from there. And so I was working at Accenture at the time. And, it's this tech company. It's a good place to have a first job. And it was also a place where I was like, what is my purpose here? I'm making PowerPoints all day. And so those two things overlapped, this horrible fire that was really personal to me, and also this kind of what is the purpose in this my corporate job. And so I just started poking around. I was not like I was between projects at Accenture, so I had a little bit of time to email leadership. And I was like, hi, I'm Nivi. There's this fire going on. What can we do? Most people said, okay, donate to the Red Cross. Good job. Thanks for thinking of this. And finally, I emailed all of the three Johns in the company, literally like the top leadership. They're all named John. I know it sounds like a joke, but it was true. And I was like, here's my proposal. I want to take a team up to this place and do some volunteering and do some research on how the community is responding, because they are responding. And I want us to put some money and time into this problem. Here's my plan. Here's why it works out for the company. Will you say yes? And I didn't think anything was going to come out of it, but they said yes. And so for me, that moment was a big turning point in realizing that me, a random entry level corporate employee in a 500,000 person company, can do a whole project around disaster relief, which is not something I had expertise in. It's not something that I have any sort of background in. I didn't have expertise in how to recruit a team or fundraise, but I got funding, I got a team, we got the project. We went up there for a month and did a whole bunch of community resilience observation and work and volunteering. And that moment to me was really a turning point of anyone can and should do everything that they can to offer this offer these challenges a solution in our own way.
Yeah, and as someone that started some focus groups in my corporate marketing career as well, I know how intimidating it can be, just again doing something you've never done before or hasn't happened within the organization. But yeah, just thank you. Hopefully that inspires other people listening, because unfortunately there are always some sort of natural disasters going on in the world, and corporations can always do more to fund and support those. It doesn't have to just come from individuals. Well,
Yeah,
it
and
does in a way, but yeah.
yeah, and I think we all just assume that we can't do. Our default is to be, if we see a problem, it's like, okay, we probably, this problem is too big, or, immigration was a big thing that was weighing on me. I don't have a solution to that, but I'll just give that as an example of like, this problem is too big and I can only take action if I'm a lawyer. That's probably not true. And I just feel like the world would be so different if all of us just assumed, yes, there is something we can do. Now we have to go find out what that thing is. And I think that was a big mindset shift for me with the whole disaster stuff in 2018.
Yeah, definitely. So I know that you touched on the mission of Soapbox Project. Where do you see your forward vision for what you're working on? And feel free to share some things you're working on if you'd like to. But yeah, where are you going this year and in the near future?
Yeah. So Soapbox has always started on this premise of helping people, first of all, get educated and then transforming that into action. And I think this year, two big shifts or maybe evolutions is one, I think there's something missing here in the middle of we have so many feeling like there's education, there's action. Both of those are important. And one big reason people come to Soapbox though is which I was completely blown away by this. They were like, "Oh, your tone, Nivi, and the way that you write stuff, and the way that I feel reading the newsletters." And I was like, "Huh, okay, that's interesting, and glad I can make that happen for you." And so, how can we make this emotional, maybe space holding more of the work that we're doing? So we have. I'll just tell you a little bit about how Soapbox works. Anybody can sign up to our bite-sized newsletters. Those are free. You should get them if you're not on them already, because if you are wondering where the heck do you possibly start, I pick the topic for you. I tell you what to read and what to watch and what to take action on and what to reflect on. And so we have this whole learning journey. It's free. There's like, I think over 8 or 9,000 people around the world that are signed up to it. It's great. I'm going to send one out probably right after this. So after that, people who want to further engage get involved in our membership community, which is like a paid community where people that want to deepen their advocacy come to us. And so one thing we're testing out this year is this concept of a rage room where it's just like going to be an hour-long small group container where you can be mad about stuff, because our core values are courage and joy, and that joy piece is so important. And it's not a fake joy of like, oh, let's just be so happy and everything's great. It's really just like, how do you find joy in the work? And I think a big part of that is honoring like all of the bad, icky stuff. So rage rooms, that's like one piece about how we're navigating the emotional space of this. We're also launching, I think next week's our first one, a non-icky networking series. Because like on that theme of emotion, there's so much here around people want better connections with humans. And like, we're tired of being so transactional all the time. And we're tired of having to position everything as a business case all the time, right? Like we're all humans trying to save our planet. So those are some things on the emotional front. I think the second evolution is the balance of online versus in person. I actually think like no matter how the pandemic keeps evolving, online is great. It's an awesome format. We're here right now doing it. It's accessible to so many people. And so I don't see it as a trade-off, but I do want to think about how to introduce actual physical spaces. So my offering to Seattle in March and April is this community gathering space. I think there need to be better social spaces where we can talk about hard things and easy things and meet our neighbors. I think this connection piece is such a big and overlooked part of activism. Like you need to feel good. You need to feel like you have people on your team. So I'm going to test this out, opening a community gathering space where we can socialize and learn from guest speakers and take action in fun ways and see, is this something people would come to? Is this something that other people are craving as much as me? So that those are the two things, Michelle, of just like our vision of building resilient communities. Because I don't think our vision is like, oh, let's fight climate change. I don't think that's what anyone actually really wants, right? What we want is safety and health and joy and time with our families. So I would say our vision is really to build resilient communities in many senses of that word. So the emotional piece and the physical pieces are two things that are big in 2024 for us.
Awesome. I'm really looking forward to the in-person events. I completely agree. And I told you the Zoom meeting that I think it was the end of year party that you hosted in December. One of the most fun Zoom meetings I've ever been to, because that can feel
Yeah.
draining after a long day of being on the computer. But it was, yeah, just your energy and the energy of the community was really fun to experience. So I know that's even more so, and we're in person and,
Yeah.
building a community around this too. So yeah, I like to ask this question too, just to connect your work with UN Sustainable Development Goals. Which ones are you primarily focused on, and could you provide a little explanation behind? Sometimes there's several that we're focusing on, but just maybe pick two or three.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this on and off. The reason that we don't have it on our website is I'm like, we are all of the goals. But I would say the ones, let me look. I have the numbers on here for people that want to follow along. Climate action goal 13, obviously that's a big one. The other one that we've been really thinking about is like the third one about good health and well-being, especially around this emotional component. I don't really know yet how to intertwine that. And then the other thing is the sustainable cities and communities, which is 11, right? Like actually pretty much like all of the UN SDGs really resonate with the work that people are interested here and the work that people are doing. But I would say those three really come to mind in like, how do you build resilient communities that can thrive and not just survive their way through the climate crisis?
I'm excited to read the book Happy Cities that you
Yes,
recommended. I
I love
have
that.
it. I haven't started it yet, but I'm really excited to dive into that. I'll link it in the comments after this too, so people can check that out. But yeah, it all starts with, like you said, thriving communities, and the sustainability portion just kind of evolves from there naturally. So
Yeah.
yeah, awesome. And then what do you feel like is the greatest impact that your role specifically with Soapbox Project has when it comes to encouraging greener marketing practices, whether that's just the way that we communicate our initiatives and commitments, but also marketing starts with us and our own
Mhm.
self-care. I always preach on that a bit.
Yeah, I would say that one thing that I try to tell people as much as I can is, especially when it comes to marketing, is being thoughtful, right? Like so much of marketing is, I'll just use swag as an example, right? Like people are like, okay, let me just order a bunch of swag and that's just what you should do. And it's kind of questioning those defaults. Kind of like I was saying earlier, what if the voice in your head was assuming you could do these things, or you could change the way swag is ordered, or that you need it at all? And so I think that's one thing, maybe a little bit on a more personal level, because we don't talk about that a ton through Soapbox, but we do events with companies quite a bit, like the same vibe that we have within our membership communities, we take that to a corporate setting. And those, like, one of the questions that we ask people is, where are the changes you can make? And so it's really awesome to see product and marketing and engineering and people in different roles talk about that. So I would say one place is when we do chat with companies, when we do events with them, allowing space to bring up existing practices and how we can change them. And then I would say the second thing, like, I don't, even though our newsletter is like in the corporate world, like it is like a part of our marketing funnel, I don't think about it that way. And I think it's really good to, I don't know, I love it. I love writing the newsletter, and I love that it's more than just like, oh, lead generation or whatever. And I think there's something here in like, marketing is such a tricky thing, right? Like half the time I'm like, should it exist? And half the time I'm like, if there's important products, you should know about them. And so I think where I've come to that and how I try to model that through my own work is just like talking to people like they're humans. I will not believe the amount of responses that I get to. So in my first email, when you sign up, I have an email that goes out saying like, respond to this email and I'll get back to you. And I do get back to people. Sometimes it takes a month, but I get back to people and they're like, oh my gosh, an actual human is actually writing this newsletter. I can't believe you actually responded to me. And I'm like, we just live in this marketing hellscape where everything just feels so impersonal and icky. So I would say that where I hope to contribute the most in like the green marketing space is just like, is this in line with who you want to be as a person? Like, are you modeling your humanity through doing your job? And one thing, this is the last thing I'll say on the marketing piece, is I get invited to speak at various conferences and events. And this is maybe kind of on the theme of the working with companies. And so I'm going to Green Biz next month. And what I really just, whenever I'm moderating a panel or speaking at an event, I really like to make sure we're thinking about the hard questions of greenwashing versus driving your actual work forward and being okay with being wrong. So wherever I can ask those hard questions of myself or others, I would say that's a big win, because I think so much of marketing and the mess we're in is really because people just aren't thinking. Like, take 1 minute to think about the email that you're sending or the ad that you're putting out in the world. And it sounds simple, but I think it will make a really big difference.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Obviously I'm in marketing, so I work with a lot of people every day on how do we word this? How do we launch
Mhm.
this campaign in a way that does feel like it's coming from humans and not just has a agenda for profit. So it's, yeah, very tricky. We could talk all day about that, but we won't. Not today, at least. So tell us how our audience can best support you and get connected and stay in touch with you. I'll include some of your links to your newsletter because I highly recommend getting on that. I really enjoyed the welcome sequence. And again, it's so nice that it's very actionable and feels like this is something that I look forward to reading. But yeah, tell us how else we can get in touch.
Yeah, so absolutely the best way is to go to soapboxproject.org and grab our newsletter. Tell your friends about it. It's just, for me, it's a no-brainer. It's like, it's free. You can unsubscribe if you hate it, but I'm literally doing all the work so that you can do something about your climate anxiety. So grab that. And as I mentioned, for people that want to get more involved, we have a bunch of stuff, which is, we tell you about it on the newsletter. And if you are in Seattle, I would love to see you on Tuesdays in March and April. Again, when you go to our website, there's like a little banner thing on the top that will direct you where to go. But yeah, I would say the two biggest things are like, when you go to our website, you can see all the options that are available to you, but grab the newsletter. That's a no-brainer. If you're in Seattle, come to the community center. And then, we didn't really talk about this too much here, but if you work for a company and you do employee engagement events and you're like, gosh, not another mixology or succulent planting event. Those are really fun, right? But like, sometimes you want to talk to your coworkers and do something meaningful together. So we do fun and actionable employee engagement events. So you can find me pretty much anywhere on the internet. LinkedIn is a really easy one, and I'm always here to chat with thoughtful people who are doing awesome things. So yeah, I'm so easy to find and get in touch with. So I think that about sums it up.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to all that you have planned in the area and with the community. And just thank you so much for being here today. And we'll be back next month with another spotlight series. So follow along with our page on LinkedIn at the Green Marketing Academy, and we'll see you back here next month. Thanks so
Thank you,
much.
Michelle.